Live from the Minotaur's Labyrinth, this is Derailed Trains of Thought. Well, this is sort of a rundown, sort of classical place.
What are we doing here, Nick? It's really dark. I keep hearing a dog barking around here
It's
somewhere.
weird. I mean, there's some nice statues that are
Broken.
mostly put together.
I don't know why. I don't know who brought all these angel statues down here if they're just going to break them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of strange. Yeah, I feel both cultured and in danger.
Yeah, that's a good summary of this place. Good thing we have a torch.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess do we keep meandering as we talk, or do we just find a corner, alcove? Are we in danger?
I have no idea. Well, the podcast usually somehow never interrupt. We never get interrupted when we're recording this thing.
Okay, let's find a corner.
So we'll find a corner. I think we'll be okay. But anyway, hi, folks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nick.
And my name is Tim.
This is Derailed Trains of Thought,
Your premier podcast on storytelling.
for the creator and the consumer.
We'll see how far we can trade this thing back and forth.
I'm trying to lead it to you. All right. So, Tim, we're midway through summer as we record, or actually more than that.
Right. Actually, yeah, we're doing pretty good this summer. Like sometimes we get busy and so we miss a July episode or something, but we're keeping on track here. I think so far, knock on wood, if there's any wood in this labyrinth.
Marble, knock on marble.
Knock on marble, sure.
All right. Well, I guess we'll just go ahead and jump straight into Story School. All right. So this week, fellow listeners, we're going to try something.
Fellow listeners, well, I guess I am listening to you right now.
Anyways, this has been on our list for a long time, but we're not sure where this is going exactly.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yes. But I found this article probably years ago now called The Desirability of Storytellers. And it was written largely from an evolutionary standpoint, talking about tribes and, well, let me give you the context.
Yes, please.
All right. So to summarize the article, or at least parts of the article, they were saying this tribe somewhere, the Philippines, I guess. And they were just kind of saying, hey, who's most important in your tribe, or who you most want to be friends with? And they gave them like choice of the hunters and the warriors and the chiefs and stuff. And then they just threw in storyteller kind of randomly. And like the storyteller had like beat out everyone. And they thought that was really fascinating.
Easily, too, from what I remember.
And they're like, oh, this is interesting because, you'd think it'd be the hunter, the warrior or something, but the storyteller everyone wants to hang out with. And they did some more studying. They have some theories, and we'll get to in a second. And they found out, because it's evolutionary point of view, that they also have 0.5 more kids than everyone else.
The storytellers.
The storytellers, yeah.
So ladies, we're very, well, I should say ladies are wives. we're very desirable.
Yes, exactly. At least in hunter-gatherer tribes we are. Anyways,
you're lucky your wife doesn't listen to this. I just realized mine does. Like I have to watch what I say on here now.
Yes, I was going to try and pull some strong bad out real quick, but anyways, the article was just reporting on like, okay, this is an interesting finding. How do we explain the desirability of storytellers from this evolutionary point of view, which that's just what they're assuming. Now, cards on the table. Tim and I do not come from an evolutionary point of view.
I think most people would be surprised, like, evolutionary point of view. They don't even think of that as a worldview.
But yeah, because it's a whole thing like, well, anything that exists has to have come through, must have some sort of adaptive use in society. That, evolution is about survival of the fittest. What we learn to do, we do because it helps us survive.
Mm-hmm.
And so apparently they're saying, hey, storytellers must help the tribe survive. And that's why, obviously, they have more kids, so that helps. And so their theory is that they tell stories in this tribe about egalitarian working together. Myths, the sun and the moon work together and split the world. And that these stories keep the social dynamic working. And so the adaptive function of the storyteller is to keep society functioning well in order so that they can survive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Long download there.
Which that tends to be the explanation scientists give for a number of things that, like, how society functions. Like, this is what the tribe found is the best functioning thing, so that is why we adopted it. Whether
Well,
it's morals, rules, etc.
Evolutionary wise, basically, if it still exists, it has to have had a function at some point.
Yeah.
And so you got to figure out what that is. Tim and I come from, we've said before, a Christian worldview. We tend to think there's something lacking in that worldview. But I wanted to start there for this reason. I found it an interesting question to be like, what is desirability of storyteller? Why is it desirable? Should it be desirable, storyteller?
Mhm.
Obviously, it's a thing we all like now, but what is the why and how do we get there? So this article was a jumping off point saying, hey, storytellers help keep society functioning in a way that promotes survival. Is there any of that you agree with?
I think it's when I say that like evolutionary kind of points to like function as part of it, I'm always feel like yes and
Okay, so what's the yes?
the yes is like yes, I can agree that stories are a way that we communicate ideas that we want. Say, if you're telling a story to your children, you want your stories that communicate ideas for your children to understand. It's a teaching mechanism. Jesus would agree with that himself. He used parables and teaching. The Bible itself is full of stories that we can learn from. So I think Christianity can agree with that. But we would also say there's more to it.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to get to. It's interesting. The article ends with the origin of storytelling doesn't necessarily reflect its later uses, though. And then it talks about how, like in Mayan things, that stories were used basically to oppress the women. So then they always have the caveat. It teaches good things originally, and then got out of control, but we didn't need it anymore, or we found other ways to adapt, or etc.
Which, again, Christianity would agree to a point. And like, yes, stories can be misused.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
There are plenty of stories that tell untruths, and stories can lie.
So that was sort of my thought as a starting point. That's our interesting article I found. I'm like, let's talk about it. That's hunter-gatherer tribes in Philippines.
Okay.
Let's take to just modern, normal life.
This won't necessarily be a world tour of story philosophy.
No, we're just using it as a jumping off point here. So here's a question. What do you think is the social rank of a storyteller in modern day? I mean, are they well-respected, not well-respected? I mean, what do you think?
It's an interesting place right now. I mean, on one level, everyone's become a storyteller at this point because of social media. It's about telling your story and your truth and all that kind of stuff.
And everyone wants, I mean, it used to be, 20, 30 years ago, everyone would write the great American novel.
Yes.
Now it's everyone wants to be the...
Or go to Hollywood and become the movie star.
Yeah. But now it's more become the content creator, the influencer.
The YouTuber, the Instagrammer, whichever have you.
So at least it seems desirability as a self-fulfillment thing seems to be very high.
Yeah.
But what do you think? I mean, socially, do we look up to storytellers?
I think it depends in some ways, on their platform.
Okay.
On the one hand, if you're a very highly successful author, sure, yes, there's a lot of respect for you. People are going to be inherently more interested in what you're going to say. And I think that's true for movie stars, people in the movie business too, or in the film industry. Although, again, it depends highly on your success level.
Yeah.
If you're a successful actor and you're clean, people will be interested in who you are and what you have to say. If you tend to be a diva and throw tantrums and are seen, living it up, people are they're gonna be like, spoiled rich kid.
Now, you've been doing some movie history work.
Yeah, for our upcoming podcast, which you'll hear more about down the road.
Yes, soonish.
Soonish.
But I know there's a rise of the auteur.
Mm-hmm.
The independent director does what he wants, single. But it does also seem like somewhere around, and maybe my history is wrong, and that's why I'm asking. I want to say 90s, people started caring a lot more who wrote the TV, the movie.
That's a good question. I don't know that I could say off the top of my head when people started becoming more aware of that. I do believe the auteur theory started in 60s, 70s-ish, and that's when really the rise of the celebrity directors became a thing.
Yes.
I don't know about screenwriters. I guess it could be 90s. I mean, certainly by the time we get into DVDs coming out, and there's a lot more information about because of the internet, but there's just a lot more information about behind the scenes and the whole field of movie making.
Yeah, it's just interesting me. I know growing up, I knew J. Michael Straczynski's name,
Okay.
Chris Carter. And now I was a creative person.
Sure. Well, and those are both showrunners too.
Yes,
So
that's true.
That just happened also to be writing a lot of those, because those aren't always the same thing. Although
No, but a lot of
depends.
times you could tell, like, that's you'd watch, like, oh, he knows, and then,
It's the creator who wrote that episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a fair point. Yeah, it seems like a 90s thing. I've never really looked into that closely.
Now people are like, oh, it's so-and-so's run of the comic, or,
Yeah, that's true. So maybe that's an interesting point. I wouldn't be surprised if some of like the comic book industry knowledge kind of fed into how people perceive the TV and movies industry.
no, that's probably, yeah. Anyway, I bring that up because it does seem like that there, like you said, success level creates a certain amount of, I don't know, idolization.
respectability.
Respect, like
Because at some point you're just a wannabe.
Yes.
You want to break into the industry, and people look down on you in a sense because, like, oh, why are you wasting your time? You're never going to be the one to get to the rise to the top of get your stuff sold and read. And
But it's interesting nowadays. Even some of the minor stuff, people have different followings. I mean,
true. And
I'll buy anything Maze Dude makes
there you go. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
because the whole thing now is that you find the creator you want to follow, not the publishing company or the station or anything.
Yeah.
It's always who is doing it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're talking general terms here. I suppose it still depends on what generation you're talking
Okay,
about.
I guess I'm thinking our age and younger
Yeah.
generally.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it does seem like there is at least a subsection of the culture that cares deeply about their storytellers. Mm-hmm. Neil Gaiman has a following like crazy.
Yeah, that's
Tolkien
true.
has a following like crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, writers, authors, that's a little different. I think they've had their following for longer.
That's true.
like Dickens, he
Yeah,
he was a celebrity.
That's true. Shakespeare was. I assume he was. I guess I don't actually know.
I don't know for sure about that one,
Yeah.
but I know Dickens was.
Yeah. So this might, in some ways, sound like a basic fact, but I think it's worth asking: why do people idolize, have a deep respect for creators?
I think there is a fascination for people who have put in the work and have become skilled at telling a story. I'm very curious. I'd love to know. There's really not a modern day analog for. I mean, I know there are people who do the oral tradition of storytelling, who will go to festivals and tell stories.
Yeah.
But I don't know very many of them who have a following.
The last one I knew was Garrison Keillor.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be very curious. It'd be interesting to observe that in a less technologically savvy culture. Like you read books so I'm reading the first of the Wheel of Time books.
Yes.
And there's these guys called gleemen whose whole profession is to go from town to town to tell stories, which is an idea I've heard about from, other medieval sources. But like, it's a big deal whenever a gleeman comes to town. Like
It's the only entertainment.
It's the only entertainment. The tavern gets full up with people wanting to hear stories. Even though there's stories people have heard before, it's a very valuable commodity. And there is something to, one, we value that escapism. I guess the whole reason, like, why do we value storytellers is the same, ties back into why do we value stories? See 130 previous episodes about that.
But I guess that's what interests me is that, how do I phrase this properly? Okay, before I go any further, let's just listen. Okay, we've assumed it.
Yeah.
For 130 episodes.
Yeah. I guess, we could recap some of these we talked about, like, because we had an episode on this called Give Thanks for Stories. It was kind of a Thanksgiving episode. Let's see what we can review from that real quick. The escapism, remind us of better things, better morals, like we talked about earlier, takes us outside of ourselves. It's a way to kind of feel like we've seen the world while staying home.
And I agree with all those. I guess the two that come to my mind that seem very, and I'm probably wrong about this, okay, but seem to be exasperated in the modern era, is stories giving meaning. There's an internet culture, there's a lot of self-involved, like connected to people's stories. Like they live in certain things. Example, I don't know much about this. I heard about recently Disney adults.
I've heard the term, yeah.
There are people who literally like will get married at Disney. I guess they had to stop people from like dropping off ashes at Disney.
Oh, goodness.
And this is probably an exaggeration, but I think you could make an argument that there are some ways, and as we become a less religious society, there is more emphasis on story. In the modern culture, more need for a framework by which to understand the world.
Okay. Are you talking about like living more vicariously through stories, that kind of escapism, or like
Giving more worth. Like, here's the thing. I love stories. I have to do this podcast, okay?
right.
But I do wonder, and again, someone could probably prove me wrong. I do wonder sometimes whether there is stories have been in some circles given more weight than they deserve
Okay.
in life, in a culture, in a.
You see our episode on idolatry, the idolatry of stories.
So I guess this is just connecting a lot of old stuff. Is that we have these these tribal cultures who vary the storyteller, creates this social dynamic, this continuity.
Uh-huh.
But through, in some ways, religious stories. I mean, they're myths they're sharing a lot of times and stuff like that. And I think probably hasn't changed the fact that one of connection and meaning and continuity and social dynamics from stories. But we have so many stories and so many different ways we're coming at it. It just, I wonder if there's if there's an analogous thing going on, but it's just been split into a million pieces.
Because of all the hundreds of stories that are ongoing right now.
And the internet and the, and the mass media and the, and the breakdown of I won't say breakdown, the exasperation of a monolithic worldview. I'm not saying it's good to have a monolithic, but culturally we do not have a single way of looking at the world anymore.
I mean, I think there is some truth to that. I mean, I think about this sometimes in regards to merchandise. We have merchandise for, like, anytime a franchise gets successful enough, we almost expect there to be some sort of merchandise for it. Figurines, T-shirts, mugs, coasters, what have you.
Yeah.
Like if you go to Box Lunch, is the store in our local mall, it's got some very tasteful decorations for all kinds of nerdy kinds of pop culture stuff, which is fun. But I do wonder if sometimes we are getting our identity out of those things. Like, oh, I want to wear Avatar: The Last Airbender t-shirt because I'm a fan of that show. Oh, I need a Naruto jacket. Oh, but I don't like Naruto. I'm going to go with My Hero Academia. One of those. Give me a based on the high school, the school colored kind of uniform. Oh no, I'm not into that. Let's go with name your other anime, or name I'm going to wear a Dunder Mifflin t-shirt because I love The Office. I can't stop watching it.
I watched it 17 times since last year.
And this is another thing I can't help but notice. The last decade or so, figurines have become more and more of a thing, especially with the anime crowd. And they'll have these really elaborate figurines. People will put like these little like exhibit display cases things. And like anytime I look at this in like a GameStop or something, like part of me is like, that's cool, but why would I want to spend $50 to have this taking up space in my desk or like a whole like cabinet or something like that? And people have always collected things.
Yeah, people collect
there's
stuff,
nothing wrong with collecting stuff, but there's a part of me that can't help but look at all these like little figurines and statues of our heroes and be like, are these miniature idols? There's kind of a resemblance to the whole like making a graven image for yourself.
Well, sometimes I wonder, what if some alien race or some future humanity does anthropology, digs us up like Egyptians. It just finds all these
plastic knickknacks.
Like, what do they read into it? Like all these symbols and icons. And again, I don't think it's wrong in necessarily, just it's interesting, the preponderance of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I won't deny that I may do some of this stuff like myself. If you walk into my office back at home, you will see a collection of Muppets figurines, and I've got like 3 different Kermit plushies, a couple different Kermit Pez dispensers. Now, some of those I have because they were given to me because people know I'm a Muppets fan, and so that's what I would get for birthdays and various things.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but in some ways, again, that's an identifier. Timothy's the Muppet guy.
Yeah.
So give him Muppet stuff. And it's not a bad thing, but we always have to, I think it's worth a closer look because, I don't want to just identify myself as a Muppet guy. I also want to identify myself, more importantly, as a Christian.
So I guess let's segue to that. So we've kind of danced around kind of the modern view of storytellers of, in some ways I guess I'm counting myself as a storyteller in this case.
Yes.
But see, I haven't reached that level of respectability, success yet, Tim. I'm the wannabe.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
No, but storytellers are in some ways the offering of, like some people they just follow constantly. Here's what's coming out next. Here's what's coming out next. Or video games. Is a whole different era of storytelling
hype.
But where should, in a perfect world, where should the storyteller story, the worth be? How much should be about the same, but just different? Should be less? Should it be non-existent? I mean, we don't believe that. I mean, we've been reading Walking on Water by Madeline L'Engle for our group we have. And at least there have been in past, and probably still now, groups of Christians that are very iffy about fiction.
Yes, not healthily. I'm like, yeah, I was going to say, for as story crazy as we have been, yeah, Christians have sometimes been a little too hesitant, restrictive on stories. What did you say about, tell us your parable story?
Oh, yeah, I was in a Bible study once, and it was we were talking about the parables of Jesus, and at least one of the people there, because I think the pastor was saying, like, look, this is a made-up story that Jesus used to make an illustration. And the person basically wanted is like, no, they're all true stories because Jesus wouldn't lie. And again, that seems overboard as far as what a story is. It's misunderstanding what a story is. It's not a lie. Well, I always remember from Taylor, fiction is a lie that tells the truth. That was how they said it in some class I don't remember.
But yeah, Jesus wouldn't tell lies, but they're not intended to be lies.
They're not meant to be taken that way. You're reading it out of context.
So even fiction, that whole like fiction is a lie to tell the truth. I want to push back against that just a little bit because like, is that, do we take that as a lie?
Okay, yeah, because it's not a. No, I think it's just a clever way of saying it.
Yeah,
it's not literally true.
And I think that's the key with some biblical language. Like you can find some passages in the Psalms, Proverbs where they're not saying things that are literally true,
but they are true.
But they are true. They're using. I think most languages. I'm no linguist. I don't know all the languages in the world, but like I wouldn't be surprised if most of them have some sort of pictorial way of using words.
Figurative language is when you at school you have to teach them, okay, here's your metaphor and your personification, all that. But it's so funny because you learn all the terms, but we do it all the time naturally. Little kids do it naturally. I mean, and
Jesus did it in ways that aren't just parables. Like something that Jesus said that you could construe as ridiculous is the whole, why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye when there's a plank in your own eye? Yeah. Well, who would not notice a plank in your eye? Like that's absurd. It's a ridiculous mental picture. But there's Jesus using an illustrative point to...
they say humorous probably in the context.
Yeah, probably.
No, and I think this is interesting because this is a slight sidetrack. Most of the Old Testament is poetry. The vast majority of it's poetry.
If you include the prophecies of that?
Prophecies, Psalms, all of Job. And when Jesus came then, he doesn't use language simply. He uses it in almost the most complex way possible. He uses layers of meaning and symbolism and metaphor and if he's the Word made flesh, he's going to use words in a better way than we do, not a worse, dumber way.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So a couple of things I guess I want to round out to is that as a Christian, obviously, I think you and I would both agree story is important.
Yeah.
The Bible is a story. It's a true story, but it's still told in a fictional manner, not in a, here's 10 things in order to be saved. It's still a narrative.
Yeah.
Jesus often told stories, routinely told stories.
Right.
But I guess here's the question. Where would the storyteller sit in a perfectly Christian society? Yeah. Well, I'll let you try that first.
If you have an answer, I would like to hear it first, actually. But
well, I don't know if I have an answer, but I fancy it would be lower than modern society.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I think there should be a certain humility because storytelling is important, but there's a lot of important... let me back up. I have not thought this all the way through. The reason the tribal storyteller was important was because he told stories that made the community as it should be.
Okay.
Right? I mean, that's their theory. I mean, It's all theoretical. But I think Christian storytellers' main purpose is to tell the truth. Not facts. But you're aligning the world to how it actually is.
Okay, here's a related question then for you. Would a Christian view of storytelling simply fall underneath teaching? Paul talks a lot about like the different...
I like that question.
Paul talks a lot about the different roles of members of the church. And he never really... I mean, there's probably a lot of things that he doesn't mention specifically.
Yeah.
Storytelling is not one of them. A storyteller is not one of them. But teaching is.
Oh, see, I'm going to push a little bit here. Okay. I think teaching, I think it could go there, certainly. Because, again, in some ways that kind of, I think, downplay, like, stories are not just teaching, but
Yeah.
that's one of its functions.
Yes.
But I think you could also put it under, I don't know, preaching or prophecy.
I was gonna say since you called the prophecies or the prophets earlier was poetry.
Well, and here's why I would say prophecy, because prophecy, at least in one understanding, is not just telling the future, but it's, in some ways, revealing the will of God, taking the words that are there and pushing them in a unique way.
And sometimes in not a straightforward literal way,
Yeah.
often in a very kind of poetic,
Subversive in some ways.
kind of abstract even.
Yeah, and
Which is one thing I often find frustrating about prophecies, and that they are so abstract. Like, is this even any use for me until I actually see them take place?
so yeah, I think it could fit in a lot of those. Because I think what you're doing, like some are teachers, some are pastors, some are or preachers, some are prophets, some are I don't know. There's like 5 of them or something.
Yeah.
But I guess here's what I come down at. If it was a perfectly Christian world, storytelling would be one of the gifts. It is one of the gifts.
Sure.
And a lot of people can do it in various ways. But I think it just is part of the body. Mm-hmm. It's important.
Yeah.
It's worth honoring. But I think we would also honor other things equal to it that maybe non-Christian cultures would not.
Okay. I see where we're coming there.
Because if it's about telling truth, then there's lots of things that do that
Sure.
outside of...
Well, and it falls in line with what Andrew Peterson has argued in Adorning the Dark, which is another book on creativity we've read not too long ago. He makes the point, and I've probably shared this on the podcast before, but how he doesn't like the term creatives because he argues that all people are creative in some way.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you're a painter or a musician or a writer or a filmmaker. Everyone can create a loving home. Women create children.
Yeah.
they nurturing and also procreation, and you can create a beautiful garden. You can create
A business.
a business, a clean living space.
Yes.
It's all matter of ordering God's creation in some way to make it better, or at least better than it would just by entropy.
Because I think sometimes in the modern secular sense, storytellers are held high if they have a certain sense of inspiration, like they just know things, that sort of like it's the Alan Moore wrote this thing and it's amazing.
Yeah, he's a prodigy.
I think there's some of that going on sometimes in the story. So in the really respected, like they do things I couldn't even think of doing. And in Christianity that might be true, but that doesn't mean they're just one part.
Yeah,
They're not the end or the ultimate goal for all people.
Yeah, Christianity really does encourage the whole idea of we all have a role to play. The example that often gets pointed out for creative type people,
Yeah.
those who, I still tend to use creative sometimes as a noun just because it helps.
We need a word.
It's a good general word, and
Yeah.
like artists has a different connotation. But anyway, the example people often give of this is like the guy who helped build the tabernacle. There's like a certain guy that God said, I've given him certain gifts in craftsmanship and all this kind of stuff. And we look to him as like, see, here's an example of God gave someone a very specific set of talents to go do this stuff.
Very specific set of skills.
But it'd be nice to see more of a balance. There's a lot going on in our modern world. The fact that, there's probably other professions that are elevated more highly than they should be in modern
Oh yeah, certainly.
America.
Things are all, and every time period has things that elevates and things that denigrates.
Yeah.
That are probably out of whack with how it should be
Yeah, that's true.
from season to season. And I think it's just interesting then that necessarily creating the meaning too doesn't have to fill a void in a perfect Christian setup, because the meaning everyone has the Bible is where we get it, and the storyteller is just revealing a certain version of but a aspect. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Versus like we need to find meaning in this vain, crazy, chasing after the wind world.
So, random question then.
Yes.
Maybe we'll close this out on. What do you think a storyteller's role in heaven will be?
I think it's going to be the same thing in the sense of if God is infinite, you won't know it all at once. And why not spend you can write a whole series on one idea, revealing different aspects of a character, Granted, not only God himself, but also just the world we live in. There will be a lot of things, I think, to reveal, revel in. Now, I've not thought through how a whole conflict thing will work or not work. But,
That's a fair question.
But that's a whole different issue.
Yeah.
That gets into deep waters there.
This may be a complete
go for
side
it.
tangent, and if it doesn't fit, I'll cut it out. But what was the story of the artist in The Great Divorce? What was his whole thing?
See, I know this part of it because this is part of why I became a writer.
That's what I thought, but I couldn't remember the details.
Well, he was a painter.
a painter.
He was a
okay.
painter. And
Well,
one was heaven, one was visiting heaven. If you don't know The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis, the whole conceit is that people from hell take a bus trip to heaven. And most of them decide then they don't like it and go back to hell, which is interesting.
Very Lewis.
Very
kind of
Lewis.
idea.
Again, one of those things that it's not true. That's not how heaven and hell actually are, but reveals a truth about the type of people go. But the one painter said the other, he was kind of an impressionist painter, like a Van Gogh or I can't think of other ones.
Monet.
Monet, thank you. Yes, he'd be a better example. That is like when you paint the light, you were painting actually your glimpse into heaven sort of thing. The way he was communicating the light on the... I always think of this piece of work at the Chicago Museum of Art. It might be Monet. It's just like a haystack at different times of day and different lighting.
Okay.
It's like a series of paintings. But you glimpse some of heaven's light when you paint the light in this picture. And I think it's the idea that you glimpse some of the beauty of heaven, of God, and you communicated it imperfectly. But then the artist, was more concerned with the materials and having a legacy and all this stuff, and not about what had actually made him make stuff.
You mean not the source or not what he was actually picturing?
Not the source. He didn't care. He had got all into he had lost connection with why he painted in the first place and got into all the details of
The business
of painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not necessarily financial, but
Just the materials, the art, the prestige, the theories,
stuff.
the stuff, all the human stuff of it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, I didn't know where this conversation would go. I just thought it was an interesting jumping off point about the desirability of storytellers. Obviously, storytellers, I think, throughout history have always been important for various reasons, shared reasons, but I think the emphasis and the changes in different cultures. And it's just, I think for us, just finding, okay, what is the proper spot?
Nice.
All right. I guess with that, we'll go to our first soundtrack.
Okay, my soundtrack today, I thought this was a fun story behind this song. So, Kakariko Village is a theme from The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. I think there are different versions of Kakariko Village.
Yes, but that's the one I always remember, Link to the Past. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's this very cheery town theme, but Expert Novice wanted to do a different version of it. And while he was thinking through this, he thought about the times where the players abused the chickens in the village.
Everyone's done it.
Like throwing the chickens around.
Until they attack.
The chickens in Zelda games will attack you if you bug them enough, right? Anyway, he got to thinking about what would the chicken story be like, and then he thought they might want revenge. So he tried to give them a story of revenge, of an epic tale that the chickens might tell. So this remix is called The Chicken's Tale. It is a remix of the Kakariko Village theme from A Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, and imagine a chicken telling this. I'm going to play the Kakariko's Village underneath this so you can hear this kind of nice, cheery, bouncy thing. This is the vibe of the village. But the chickens have to tell this tale of epic chickens overthrowing their human masters. That's what this remix is.
Nice.
So enjoy.
Welcome back. Hopefully everyone survived the chicken's tail.
Yes, remember, if you abuse the chickens, they may tell stories that will inspire their kind to come back. Remember, stories are dangerous, so beware of those who tell them. They may come back to peck you.
Very nice, I guess. Anyways, we'll move on to Once Upon a Sentence. All right, Timothy, can you remind us of last month's sentence?
Yes, last month's sentence brought to us by the one and only Aaron Brosman was, the ships hung in the sky in much the same way that bricks don't.
As of the time of this recording, we have no answers.
Which I'm kind of surprised by. I bet there's someone out there who knew but
Just forgot to.
forgot to contact us. Well, you're too late.
So what is it, Tim?
It is from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy
Dun, dun, dun.
by Douglas Adams.
Yes.
So, famous sci-fi satirical, or what do you call that? Is it a spoof? Humor, I guess.
Humor. You just,
Novel.
yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So our next Once Upon a Sentence, in honor of storytelling, I will say is both from a short story and from a collection.
Aha.
So I don't know which that helps or not. But
So, what is this month's sentence?
this month's sentence is, in the living room, the voice clock sang, tick-tock, 7 o'clock, time to get up, 7 o'clock, as if it were afraid that nobody would.
Aw.
Okay. One last time.
One last
Okay,
time.
here we
Let's
go.
hear it again.
In the living room, the voice clock sang, tick-tock, 7 o'clock, time to get up, 7 o'clock, as if it were afraid that nobody would.
All right. So, you may email us at derailedtrains@gmail.com.
All right, you can even leave a comment, I guess, on
Yes,
our website. and
on our
we'll find
website,
it.
derailedtrainsofthought.com. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. I guess if you leave a comment in these public places, you might be spoiling it for someone else. But hey, at least you'd be the first.
You'd be the first.
You can claim first as you do it.
Exactly.
In a classic internet tradition.
So now let's go on to a bit of story. All right, so it's been a bit since we've done a bit of story.
It seems appropriate in an episode that's about storytelling to do some storytelling.
Yes, there we go.
So tell us a story, Mr. Storyteller.
Our story, Mr. Anyways. So this one actually is a lot of fun. My daughter, this would have been about 2 years ago, drew this ridiculous picture of this pig princess, or half pig princess, half goblin.
Which is interesting because has Serenity ever heard or read A Girl Called Snort?
I think she's heard of it. We've not read much of it.
Okay. So not inspired by that.
I don't think so. I mean, we'd read a little bit of it, but I don't think so. So anyway, she drew a picture of Princess Pig Gob, half pig, half goblin. Pig Gob.
Okay.
And she lives in Dill Pickleville. And she asked everyone, she posted this on our wall and said, hey, everyone, we're going to have a contest, write a story for it.
Okay.
And so I did, and my wife did. I don't think Theo did, which he probably should have. But every once in a while, our walls just become like,
It's like an art gallery in your house.
well, no, but sometimes there's like announcements on our wall from our kids, like, hey, coming up is a show, or coming up is a contest, or
Oh, I see.
so.
I never know what's going to be up at your house when I go over there. It makes it quite entertaining.
You saw the piranha plant last time, didn't you?
the piranha plant, yes, which is awesome, made out of cardboard, and it was like probably about as tall as Theo is.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's very impressive.
So, in any case, this is called In Which Princess Pig Gob Encounters Galoomph the Hunter.
Okay.
So here we go. His name was Galoomph, and he was a hunter. He hunted any kind of creature: chimeras, manticores, unicorns, sphinxes, fairies, mermaids, horse fairies, mermaid fairies, narwhals, you name it. He hunted them, he killed them, sometimes for a price, sometimes just for fun. Galoomph was not a nice guy. His client desired stealth, so Galoomph waited outside Dill Pickleville until the sun set and the gate closed. No one saw him as he climbed the wall. If they saw him, they would remember him. He was 7 feet tall, with one large eye planted moon-like smack dab in the center of his face, and he had just one rope-like hair on top of his bald head that no blade could cut. If they saw him, they would remember him, and he couldn't have that. He stalked carefully through the streets of Dill Pickleville, as silently as a glare, toward the castle Princess Big Gob. Tonight would be her last night. Galunf was not one of those mercenaries who took the coin and asked no questions. That led to accidents and decapitations. Galunf instead had carefully designed a 12-page questionnaire his clients filled out. That is how he knew exactly why Mulg, king of Cucumberg, hated Princess Pigob. Reason 1. Pigob was the daughter of Mulg's arch-nemesis, who was also his younger brother. That story was long and complicated, and had been described in detail on extra pages attached to the "What do you want me to kill?" packet section of the questionnaire. Basically, the two brothers had discovered the dragon egg as kids. Mulg, then princelet of Cucumberg, had wanted to raise a ferocious fire-breathing beast of war. His brother had been rather peckish. An omelet was made. A rivalry sparked. Reason 2. Mulg considered Princess Pigob an unnatural creature, an abomination among men. Sure, she was half pig and half goblin. Her mother, interestingly, was full pig goblin. It was worse than that, though. Princess Pigob also preferred her toast plain, without jelly or jam, without butter even, burnt as black as sin. This infuriated Mulg beyond all reason. Pigob must die. Reason 3. Mulg desired Princess Pigob's head on a platter, the method of delivery specified in question 17 of section 3. Because his son had fallen in love with Princess Pigob, and no son of his was going to bring home a lovely, charming, funny, half-pig, half-goblin heir to a throne and enormous wealth if he had any say in it. Regardless, Galunf was happy to comply. This hunt would take little effort. Whatever risks there were, Princess Pigob had a fanatically devoted maid, and some small fanciful magic were negligible, especially when all her guards and friends were sound asleep and he stood over her, sword in hand. So Galunf slid through the shadows like an enchanted arrow through dragon scales. He passed the sentries like an ill-boding wind past the window of an inn common room. He ascended the winding stairs like the flatulence of a swamp slug. He entered the royal rooms and adjoining areas of Princess Pigob. She snored. He approached. Her lustrous hair shimmered in the moonlight shining through the open balcony door. With a soft shh, he unsheathed his short, shiny sword. He raised it over his head. He brought it down. Princess Pigob rolled to her side to a better position. The sword sliced through the quilt and mattress, sending feathers flying. One of those feathers fell upon Princess Pigob's snout. It twitched, tickled. She murmured, but did not wake. Galunf, raising his sword again, paused. Princess Pigob was muttering something. He stooped down to listen. In calm, not windy weather, drift we few light as a feather. Galunf's heavy body lifted into the air. By some small, fanciful magic, he was floating. It didn't matter. He could still strike. This time he lunged, hoping to skewer the pig goblin princess. The move was rather awkward. He had no leverage. The sword pierced the large stuffed bear the princess slept with. In his frustration, he flapped his limbs, stirring up a lone feather. It fell again upon Princess Pigob's snout. The snout twitched. She sneezed. Now, as you perhaps know, sneezes are one of the 3 great natural defenses provided the pig goblin, alongside unbreakable teeth and an ability to bear even the most unpleasant aromas. This sneeze came with a great force and a volume of phlegm. Galunf, floating above the princess, felt the blast full force. He went hurtling out beyond the balcony and above the bitter forest beyond Dill Pickleville, dripping mucus. In the morning, Princess Pigob woke and complained greatly of the tears in her bed and the hole in her bear. "What happened?" she asked her maid, the blindly loyal Hildegast Hildebrand. "Blessed if I know, princess. Another assassination attempt, I don't wonder." Princess Pigob sighed. "That's the 3rd this month. Oh well, I won't figure anything out on an empty stomach. Breakfast? 2 slices of toast, just like you like 'em, princess." She crunched into the first, charcoal crumbs splattering the sheets.
So, Nick,
Yes.
what insightful moral were you teaching your children with that story?
Don't kill people.
That makes sense. Or you'll get team rocketed by a sneeze.
I'm saying that life is fun. Enjoy it. Laugh. So yeah, it's interesting. After Tim gets done with this, it probably won't have as many problems as I had trying to read it. It was kind of a tongue twistery sort of story.
You had some tricky names, but also sometimes you just got tripped over your own verbiage.
Yes.
I'm curious, who won this writing contest?
I think I did.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. I think. Just because I think the humor got it.
Okay.
Natasha's was good, but mine was ridiculous.
Okay. So the laughter won out.
For a 6-year-old, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. That makes sense.
Because what, 2 years ago? Yeah, so 6.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait, no, 8. She would have been 8.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right. After that bit of silliness, it's time to go to probably a little more silliness in It Came from the Interwebs. All right, this is, I don't know how much there is here. This is just something I found the other day, and it just made me laugh. I thought it was just ridiculous.
Bring it on.
So, The Guardian, which is a big newspaper in Britain, has this section called Experience, where people write their experience. It's like first-person stories. Everyone's telling their lived experience.
Okay.
I get this email with random things that people are saving, and I just had to click. I'm like, what is this? And then I found that there's lots of these.
Okay, explain that you get an email for things that people are saving.
So there's this app called Pocket, which I used to use to save articles.
Okay.
And just puts it so you can read it later.
Okay.
I don't use it anymore, but I still get the email where it sends what lots of people are saving. It makes like a collection of like the top 5 things everyone's saving.
Okay.
And it has a very interesting collection of stories because it's you tell there's a certain type of person
Who uses
this
app.
thing. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And I just normally just read the headline. Every once in a while, I click one and look into it. But it's just an interesting thing. So the one that came to me was this. And these are just headlines. I read a little bit, but the headlines just make me funny.
Yeah, I guess we go back. So this is back on the Guardian thing of the experience.
Yes, the experience. So this was the first experience I was exposed to.
Okay. So
It came in my email. It said experience.
from some random person who shared this with the Guardian.
Yes. I let a baby bird nest in my hair for 84 days.
That's an interesting hobby.
And I'm like, why? And then I read part of it, and it was like this whole like, and if you read a little bit, and they're not always, but let's see if I can find this. They're always kind of like meaning, they're
Well-meaning kind of things. Oh, I guess I should ask. They tend to have a rational explanation, or these are just quirky people?
they're just quirky people. Like,
Okay.
yeah, it just.
I'm guessing this person had very long hair.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I read it. Just like she just let him nest there. Each day he made little nests in my hair on the groove of my collarbone, which filled me with awe. He tucked himself under a curtain of my hair and gathered individual strands with his beak, sculpting them into a round of woven locks, resembling a small nest, then setting them aside. He would allow it to unravel when it was done and start again the next day. And she just like bonded with this bird. And it's usually like this deep experience sort of thing. It's just like,
Man, my neck started feeling stiff just
Yeah.
listening to that. It's like I can't imagine like how would you hold still that long enough for a bird to do that?
so like, here's the last line. Raising him taught me how to live in the present and changed me forever. Yeah. So,
Okay, well, congratulations.
yeah. So,
Okay, so what let's hear
so
some more
there's
stories.
just, so I was just looking through, and some are just like normal. Some are just like weird, like experience. I've collected more than 8,000 teapots, which, okay.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
they're-
just weird.
There are people who have made those sorts of collections. I've heard on World and Everything in It, I think it was, there was some guy who collected sand from all around the world.
Yeah. I think everyone are listening to that one.
Yeah.
So some of these are just like interesting people, but some of them, they're just like clickbait headlines, just like experience. I punctured my lung by eating cereal.
Yikes. So, I mean, this is a form of storytelling.
It is,
essentially.
it is.
It's a form of like bizarre storytelling.
It's like Ripley's Believe It or Not became like highbrow English newspaper. And that's what makes me fun. I think what I find so funny is not like weird things happen to people, that we like cultivate this collection of like
oddities.
and like, and at least the few I look at, like they always try to bring some sort of like, it's not just like this is a weird day. It's like some sort of like
Meaning of life
moral
idea.
purpose, something out of it.
Okay.
I bake recipes I find on gravestones.
Now that's fascinating. I mean, I've heard about taking a recipe to your grave, but that's a little literal. But
See, everyone's
I thought that's a good line. Come on.
yeah. And then, like, here's the last sentence, paragraph of this one. I've not read this one. The idea of selecting a stone is terrifying to me. I don't know how I want the world to remember me just yet. But for these women, the recipes seem like the perfect way to connect with their families after they'd gone. And then they make this whole meeting out of collecting
Okay. Huh.
Experience, a cactus saved my life. And then the little tagline, this is it, I thought, as I started to roll down the canyon, rapidly picking up speed.
Oh, okay. I can.
Okay.
That gives me a mental picture. Like someone was rolling down a cliffside, and I'm guessing a cactus stopped their fall.
I guess so.
I mean, that sounds painful, but like, yeah, that's a good story.
Oh, this one. I searched for my father for 16 years and discovered he was a murderer.
Yikes.
And then it says, if he'd done this to a stranger, what might he have done to me? That's the tagline.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't have guessed these headlines came from a British newspaper. I would have guessed they came from a tabloid.
Exactly. Experience. I found a tiny frog in my salad. Now he's my friend.
Okay, that was not the direction I expected that to go.
No. And then sometimes they're just kind of depressing. Like, experience. After getting COVID, everything I eat tastes like rotting flesh.
Ooh, I mean, I've heard of that. That's not
disgusting.
That's not a it's not an isolated incident. I have heard about.
Yeah.
There's stories about people who have gotten COVID
Yeah.
and their tastes are all screwed up.
This one sounds like it should have come from Stuart Lem War Hero, okay?
Okay.
Which is a short story from ages ago that I wrote. Experience, I was impaled on a shoe rack.
Yeah. Okay. Either that or something that happened to your wife in Brazil.
Okay. This just sounds like a horror film, like a disaster film. I was attacked by a dog while climbing a volcano. Like, okay.
Yeah, that's a series of unfortunate events. They just compound on each other.
Exactly. I just like this was just cartoonish experience. I got pulled into a conveyor belt by my scarf. Here's the tagline. My head was edging closer to the gap where it would be crushed. Knowing there was nothing I could do, I felt strangely at ease with my fate.
Wow.
Yeah. Experience. I made friends with my doppelganger.
Okay. That'd be interesting.
This right here is like I would hate. Like this would be a nightmare.
Okay.
Experience. I went to the same nightclub for 1,000 nights.
Same nightclub for 1,000 nights.
That sounds like horrible. I don't need nightclubs every night. That just seems.
Let's see. That would be a little under 3 years, I would guess.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
This one doesn't even count. This is just lame. They just need one this week. Experience. I broke my friend's leg.
Who cares?
That's like any kid. Yeah.
Okay, that's a little harsh, but still.
Now this one would be rough. Experience. I'm allergic to water.
What? How can you be allergic to water?
Okay, it says, here's a tagline. When I shower, I feel a tingling. Then it progresses to a gnawing, itching feeling as if there was something chewing on the inside of my skin.
Okay, that sounds more like a phobia than an allergy because, like, our bodies are like, what, 60% water or something like that?
I don't know. It's just...
That is...
Tim, this line is from you.
Okay.
I wish people were a bit kinder about it. I've had people laugh at me and tell me that's impossible or that I'm making it up. They just say things like, but we're made up of water. How can you be allergic to it? We don't have the answer for that yet. I just know that I am. Come on, Tim.
Yes, clearly I'm not sensitive enough. That's the problem here. No, I think you need to see a doctor.
This one I can get behind this one. Experience. I've had the same supper for 10 years.
Mm.
For him, it's apparently 2 pieces of fish, an onion, an egg, baked beans, and biscuits.
Okay, not the supper I would go for.
No.
As for someone who was a bachelor for longer than he intended to be, it does ring a bell. Like I definitely had very similar suppers for a long period of time before I got married.
Yes.
Not the exact same one every night, but yeah.
I can get behind, yeah. But anyway, so this, I'll see if I can find 1 or 2 more, but some of them are just like normal, and some of them are just like, why are we sensationalizing?
I mean, some
It's
of
just
them,
interesting.
yeah, some of them are genuinely interesting.
Some of them are generally interesting. When I found it the first time, it just caught me like, just they're all in the same place from The Guardian, I think just cracked me up.
I mean, I can totally see if my life was saved by a cactus, I would totally use that as a conversation starter.
Experience. I helped a snail find love.
Okay. Yeah. I see your point there. It's like, you think about it for a second, it's like, okay, that's not quite as grand as you make it sound, but it's cute. I feel like we're being very judgmental in this segment.
Oh,
more
yeah,
than
you
I
have to in
expected
this.
be.
Wow, this is impressive. Experience. I've written a letter to my local paper for every day for 40 years.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Must not be a lot going on in that paper for them to print.
I don't know if they print them every day, though.
That's true. They may not, but still, that is
That's impressive.
impressive. I'm actually a little surprised they haven't just hired you by this point. Except if you're doing it for free, then maybe they don't have a reason to.
This is a plot for some of these could be good, like story starters. Actually,
Okay.
like this one. Experience: a burglar made me think I was losing my mind.
Because
Oh, here it says this makes more sense. Things were going missing, but everybody told me it was probably nothing.
Oh, okay. Not like the burglar is having a conversation with you.
And then there's that guy. Experience: my face became a meme.
Oh,
Do you know that guy?
maybe he just showed me a picture, folks.
Yes, it's the guy. He's at the computer, and he's like all like this old computer. Let's see, where is that? Here it is. Tim, help me describe this thing once I.
Oh, that vaguely. Okay, so there's a guy holding a mug of coffee, and he's got this he's smiling, but he looks like he's almost like, how do you describe that face?
Yeah.
He's like you caught him in the middle of doing something else and just asked him to smile suddenly. I don't know. Maybe that's his natural smile. I don't mean to make fun of it, dude.
Yeah. No. It's just. Well, this is interesting experience. I rescued my husband from a volcano on our honeymoon.
Ooh.
It's like what's that movie? Joe versus Volcano.
Oh, sure.
Anyway, it's a very interesting collection of stories. Like, I'm sure individually they're very fascinating. Just when I saw them all on a page,
Yeah.
you're just like, what is this? And it's like this big paper.
Yeah, there's like a compounding factor when you see them all together in one place like that.
Yeah, and I mean,
And then when you look
individually,
closely,
they're
it's
fine.
like, okay, these are interesting tidbits, like slice of life kind of stories. I'm not sure I really care all that much about the mating snails, but
No. Okay. Experience. I taste people's names.
interesting.
Yeah, I've heard that what is it called? Synesthesia, where like you hear music and you see color sort of stuff.
Yeah, there's. I recently nominated books for our book club, and one of the authors in his author bio says that he is one of those things.
Oh, okay.
So he's like, so if you give him a piece of cake and he tells you that it tastes blue, take that as a compliment.
Okay.
It's like, okay,
Interesting.
that would be a very different life.
It would be a very different life. Anyways, so that was just a little the interesting things of the internet.
And if it wasn't for stories telling real life things that happen to them, that's a slice of the human experience we wouldn't know about.
There's quite a lot of interesting. The world is a fascinating place. I mean, there's a lot of like if you think it might have happened to somebody, it probably has.
There you go.
So I guess with that, we need to find our way out of here.
Yeah, I'm hearing some ruckus down at the other end. Maybe that old man and his dog have found an opening somehow.
Yeah, or at least they can keep us entertained. Maybe if
True.
we need- yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some human company might be good if we're trapped down here for a while.
yeah. So Tim, how can they get a hold of us?
You can email us. Our email address is derailledtrains@gmail.com. Also, we are on Twitter. You can follow us at derailed_trains.
I think so.
That is our Twitter handle, and as well as Facebook. That's another place.
That's it. And then you can subscribe as iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, other places,
Find all of our podcasts at
Overcast.
Well, yes, on those places, as well as derailedtrainsofthought.com, our very fancy new website.
And you can search all sorts of cool ways.
Yes.
Old things. When was the last time we did Crackpot's Corner?
Probably a while ago.
Probably 100.
Probably our episode 100. We met some interesting people in episode 100. But yes, you can find your favorite segments, find old topics, or just bask in the wonder of over 130 episodes of Derailed Trains of Thought.
Share it with your friends, your family, your snails.
Or snails, indeed.
Yeah. Experience. I found the best podcast ever listening to Tim and Nick.
Aw.
Anyways, my soundtrack before we meander out of here is from Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge. It's called Cozy Campfire. It just gave me a sense of you sit around the campfire, you're telling stories. It's a very piratey sort of sound, a very meandering sort of we're just sitting here playing music, thinking about the treasure that we just robbed or forgot or whatever.
And it may sound familiar by the end as something we've used for our listener feedback intros. So now you'll get to hear the full version.
It is remixed by Yfish. Yffisch. Yfish.
You fish.
Yfish.
You fish.
All right, so enjoy Cozy Campfire, and we will be hopefully out of here. So
Sounds good.
this has been Nick.
And this is Tim.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
Bye.